when we run away from it.
Guns up! Giddy up! What's going on, guys? Tonight I'm alone again. Mike is back out. He's had a rough day today. He's still not just fully recovered from the COVIDs and just suffering from a big, massive headache and some other things. So we gave him another night off. Just he's gotta rest. So if you reach out to Mike, let him know he's got to take care of himself first. But man, we got a great show today. I brought on somebody. I took this gang class. I took a gang class years ago, and this was maybe the most interesting human being I've ever had in a class. And it was all about him. And I reached out to him last minute today, and I said, hey, brother, I'm going to need some backup today. And you were one of the most interesting dudes I've ever sat in a class with. And would you come on and chat it up with us tonight? And he said he cannot be on screen because of the nature of his job and his business, which you guys are going to learn about. But maybe one of the most exciting people that I've ever met. BC Sanders. What's up, brother?
What's up, buddy?
How are you tonight, huh?
Well, I'm actually pretty glad to be here, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm glad you reached out to me.
Dude, so you're in my studio right now, which is dope, and you're with Jimmy, the overpaid producer, and I'm in Wilmington. I'm at the beach. I took a 2-day skate trip with the children because we've been working really, really hard, and Mondays and Tuesdays are like my only time away from the distillery. So we did a 2-day skateboarding trip. So we've been skating all over the coast of North Carolina, hitting lots of skate parks. My kids are actually repping 5-0 skate stuff with the donut operator and things like that. And I know that you are big into skate culture. You're really big into punk culture. And you are, I mean, I don't know. What are you?
Yeah. I'm still working as a cop.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, my background in police work is with gangs and stuff, but yeah, I still love punk rock, still love skateboarding. I'm glad that, your kids are skating and you're carrying it on like that and not dropping the ball. You know what I mean? So that's all good.
Yeah, brother. Listen, so we're just going to keep it the South. Honestly, I don't even know where you work anyway. Nor do the fans have to know this. But you have really fucking done a number on gangs all over the place. You've taught courses, you teach courses, you manipulate gang life and gang worlds as they don't even know it. How did you get into all of that type of things? And listen, let me just start by telling our audience really fast. Again, I'm going to apologize to you because we are live and a lot of people are like, where the fuck is Mike? Well, he's not here. He's sick. Give me a break. But I was taking a class a long time ago and this guy came into the class and we, when you're a police officer, you get to sign up and learn some things, some extra classes, continuing education as they call it. And I get to this class and I'm kind of like just doing it for a check the blocks, a check the book, if you will. And this guy walks in, he's wearing all black. He's got a black suit on. He's got the black shoes. He's got the black shirt, it looks like he's going to a fucking funeral. Hair slicked back, long, but slicked straight back like a fucking, like John Wick before the movie even came out. And I thought, damn, this guy looks cool as hell. And then he starts talking and he totally speaks my language. And I'm like, dude, this is some real deal shit. It ended up being one of the best courses I've ever taken. How did you get involved in all that stuff?
Well, it all started back when I was a brand new rookie and getting out on the block and seeing probably like 15 dudes selling crack back then and being, head to toe red, flying red bandanas, in their back right pockets. And I don't know anything about it. Like, okay, this looks like a gang. So I'm asking, senior ranking officers, hey, what's the deal with this stuff? It's got to be a gang. And they're all, oh, they're just wannabes. Don't worry about it. And at that time there was still like a little attitude, with officers and dudes on the block, sometimes, disrespecting those guys. But every time I would try to find training, there wasn't anything out there. And then the 1 or 2 classes that I did take, And there's no disrespect to those instructors, but they were so behind, like on their information. You know, they would walk into a room and basically be like, okay, Bloods wear red, Crips wear blue, and gangs are bad. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't, I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know hand signs, how they talk, why they're doing what they're doing, how they operate. You know, I wanted to know all of it, because to me it was like, that's the only way you combat it, is to know all of that, right? Like, I mean, any organization you want to dismantle, you got to know it. You can't just think you're going to attack it by just arresting some random people. So I just started building rapport with the dudes in the block, and I would just get out of the car and start talking to them and ask them, like, you know, what's the deal, man? Everybody says y'all are a gang. Like, what does that mean? So a lot of the guys would, because I was, you know, relaxed and I wasn't taking people to jail at the time, I'm just talking to them. So they would, you know, show me hand signs or start talking to me about stuff. And then I just kind of learned a little from that crew. And then I would go to another block and see the same thing, but then know that those guys beefed with the other blocks. And then I would throw out a little bit of knowledge that I learned from the other block. And they're like, hey, you know, well, that's not us. You know, we're a different set. And I'm, oh, what does a set mean? Like, a blood is a blood. And they're like, nah, bro, it's like different sets, different nations, East Coast, West Coast. Like, so they basically just started teaching me everything then when I was on patrol. And so I just started, you know, trying to take notes, try to learn it, and knew that at some point I wanted to be an instructor, and I wanted to become the expert to where when I walked into a room and taught a class, that you know, the student would actually leave the class and be ready to go. Like, you know, get out on the block, start doing actual gang work, not just to entertain someone, or not just to sit down and, you know, pat myself on the back and be like, oh, look at all this gang information I know. I wanted to actually teach the strategies so that the students could actually go out there and build their own gang units or do their own thing, even on patrol or whatever it is, you know, not just, like you said earlier, like checking a box, you know?
Yeah. But you went like a little bit further than that, right? So like,
Yeah.
you know, I being that I took in the course and everything, and we get to hear these things, and hopefully you can talk about them, but I mean, it goes as far as that you are getting in with like DAs and saying that, like, look, if you don't give this guy a reasonable bond and he doesn't bond out, there's going to be a leadership void in this area, and that's probably going to lead to more people dying. So you need to like figure out, you can't have both of these guys in jail. One of them's got to be out, or shit's going to hit the fan. Like, you were so in the know of what was going on in gangs throughout the South and the Southeast, that you were able to kind of manipulate how things and what crimes were going to be done. And so, I mean, you've worked all over the place from New York to Atlanta. You knew what was going on.
So yeah, because a lot of it is connected that way. So and this is for any jurisdiction, they've got to have some kind of gang. Now, whether that gang is, you know, a nationally recognized gang, like a certain blood set or Crip set, gangster disciple, whatever. One of those things that if they get involved and they start learning it that way, and understand that if they make an arrest of a certain leader who is pushing, you know, street beef or pushing, you know, set violence, then you can actually prevent a lot of the future shootings. Or, you know, you may do a phone extraction and you're going through that data, and all of a sudden you see some stuff that looks like, you know, not basic English. You got to kind of decipher it. If someone is in that know and plugged in, they can read it and then be like, oh, look, they're making a move, or they're putting a hit on so-and-so, you know? So then if someone is getting a charge on, let's say, drugs or a gun or something, if that unit goes and talks to the prosecutor, they kind of let them know, look, this is not just a basic, you know, drug charge. This is a person who's kind of plugged in with this set. They hold a certain rank and they're actually putting hits on people. Like, we don't need them out on the landscape. Because I've had gang members tell me, they're like, yeah, I got an order to do a hit, but I'm not going to do it because that dude's locked up. Like, he can't touch me right now. Like, I'll have to pay for it later. But since he's locked up, I don't have to necessarily put in that work or do that double or that assignment. You know, it's kind of like when most people are at work and their boss is away. You know what I mean? Like, they slack off a little bit. I mean, seriously. So like, these dudes would be like, yeah, I'm not trying to blow smoke when old buddy's locked up. Now, when he gets out, I got to come up with a good reason why I didn't, you know, pull the trigger or whatever. But so if you can stay ahead of it that way, and get DAs or prosecutors on board to understand there may be a certain unit, like a gang unit, making drug charges, but they're making it on very violent gang members. And they gotta, it's kind of like all hands on deck. Like, you got to do it, because if you don't, the violence gets out of control. And the more a gang leader has that violence, like if a gang leader says, tells a lower ranking guy, you're going to go put in this hit, and that dude goes and does it and gets away with it and doesn't get arrested, then everybody in the set believes that gang member, has control of everything. And so then the gang resolve is incredible then. You know what I mean? So what you're really trying to do is break that resolve by showing them that gang leader doesn't have that kind of power. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Really, it's kind of like Hook. It's like Rufio. It's like whoever holds the fucking golden sword is the fucking big dick. You were talking about gang writing, graffiti, stuff like that. Like, it's a whole different language, right? Like, it's a whole different way of speaking, a way of talking. It's the art, it's the graffiti. Tell us about that. Like, teach us about the art and the graffiti and the writing.
Yeah. So one of the best comparisons I could probably say is if two infantry soldiers, are sitting around talking and speaking in acronyms, nobody else knows what they're talking about unless they're in an infantry unit or the army or military or whatever. It's the same thing in the gang world. It's there's a certain lingo, certain slang that sometimes only that gang knows. And then sometimes it's just kind of generic terms too. So the more slang or the more lingo that gang has, the actual better it is when you're deciphering their messages in a phone extraction, or you're listening to a jail phone call and the conversation is not normal at all. People are dropping references like, did you get that bacon off the pizza? And the other person's like, no, because they don't know the lingo or whatever. They're like, there's bacon on the pizza. Make sure you throw it out in the trash. And they're really just trying to say, like, get the gun out of the house before the cops get there. It's just, sometimes it's kind of dumb.
Shit, man, that makes me feel like the Podesta emails are even more real than I thought. Like, maybe they weren't talking about cheese pizza and fucking 10,000 different emails.
Yeah. So, but I was just going to say that. But then, then there's very specific lingo that set would know. So it's like a whole list of terms to substitute for that. So, like, one gang may only use poles for a pistol, you know what I mean? Or they may say, let me get that golden arch, which sounds kind of dumb, but that may be very specific for that gang, for that weapon.
Like,
right.
Big Mac. I want that golden arch. I want to deliver without the fucking cheese.
The bad thing is when they incorporate the lingo into a conversation, it's supposed to flow normally. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they'll like pause on it, especially like on a jail phone call, because they know it's getting recorded, or they should know because it plays the message in the beginning of the phone call. But then they sit there and talk that way, and then you can hear a very distinct, like, half a second pause before sometimes guys talk in code, and then you kind of know, like, all right, this is a little out of the ordinary, let me key in on this. But then you get into graffiti, like you had mentioned. So like I tell people, the easiest thing to do about graffiti is, you see something spray painted on a wall, if you can read it and it's legible, it's probably gang related, right? It's not like a tag, or like these kids, I say kids, but you got adults that do it too. But these crews that can do like really good artistic, bubble letters or whatever, like, they're like their signature, and they just bomb a whole city and just put it up everywhere. That's not gang graffiti. Gang graffiti is like like I said, if you can read it, it probably is that. So it may be something like they throw their setup, like maybe they're 8 Trey Gangster Crips, right? So they may just put ETGC on the side of a wall, and it looks innocuous to the citizens. They're just like, oh, there's some graffiti, But to a really good cop, they're like, oh, I got 8 Trey Gangster Crips on my beat now. And if they don't get that cleaned up, if they just kind of ignore it, then it gets cross tagged, by a rival gang. So another gang will come into that area and just exit out. Just put a big X over it. And if they're nice enough, they'll put up their set. So then in a lot of cities that just let the graffiti stay up, you're letting those messages get seen. So then the rival set comes in, cross tags it, and then they write up. So that maybe they're rolling 20s, neighborhood bloods, right? So they just cross that out, and then they put their set up there. And a really good beat officer would now know, oh, wow, I've got 8 Trey Gangster Crips on my beat. And I got rolling 20s because this wall says so, right? So then when that officer takes that report, maybe they knock on a few doors, people who have a good point of view of that graffiti. And maybe those citizens can actually give them a hint of who did it, or, what the crew looked like, or hell, it could be a citizen says, yeah, the dudes that spray paint or the dudes that cross tag that sit on that power box and smoke every Friday and Saturday night, and usually we hear gunshots. So now that patrol officer can take that info and be like, all right, I at least know now where I need to sit in the shadows and get a couple of buddies, to check in and maybe get a gun off somebody, figure out who these gang members are, and work it from there.
Yeah, I thought one of the most interesting things that we learned from your course, and I'm guessing it's why it was done where I worked, because I worked in a high high gang area. But one of the cool things is that in our squad room we had a gang wall. So when you walked in our squad room, it would say like 8 Trey, whatever, and then underneath it would be just pictures of each gang member with their name. It would be a mugshot, and it would say like, Brian Anderson, Sweezy, and then it would be like what his rank was, and it would go all the way down, and then it would say like the name of a street, and then it would have another sect of gang, and then all the members on there, and then off to the side of each one of these pictures was like a expo marker where like you could write notes. So it's like if you saw Sleazy who hangs out on Haywood Street, but then you saw him over on Star Street, and he's not listed under that sect of gang that hangs out on Star Street, you could say like, yo, I saw this guy who's normally over on Haywood Street or whatever, he's now on Star Street. And so if there's a shooting or something that goes out on Star Street, the next guy coming in between shifts can go like, oh man, we just had a shooting on Star Street, and blah blah blah, and he could go over to the gang wall and see what's going on that street, and just see like with the expo marker, oh, there was this guy named Sleazy from Haywood Street. I've never seen him before, and he was over on Star Street, and that might be a good spot to look. Now they removed that wall after about 3 years because they said that there was too many black people on the wall. Problem is that our district was primarily black people. We did have a couple of Hispanic gangs, but there wasn't any white gangs, so they made us get rid of the wall. I mean, do you think things like that should come back, or do you think it hurt cops, helped cops?
No. So I was going to say first, the gangs dictate who comes in and out. So most of your East Coast bloods that dominate a lot of the southern states have like rule number 3, 4, depends on the set, but a lot of them have a rule that says no whites allowed. Right. So,
right. And sounds racist.
It is. It's because a lot of other gangs are open enrollment. There are other gangs, some of the Chicago-based.
We need to cancel these racist games. What are the gangs that don't allow white people? I want to cancel them.
Yeah. So
let's say it right. Let's dox them right now. Who are the ones that don't let white people in?
Right. United Blood Nation.
No, stop.
The East Coast. Yeah.
Wasn't Lil Wayne blood?
So he, from what I understand, at some point he was. I don't know necessarily what set he claimed or anything. I've seen like some music videos like, oh yeah, he's definitely got a flag on, he's throwing bees up and stuff. But I will say he's also gone on record in an interview and talked about being saved by a local beat cop when he got shot as a kid. And he kind of said, look, I don't get down with all this, everybody talking about racism and all these, like, basically like a white cop saved me. And he saw me as a human being, not, as like a demographic or whatever. So, man, I was pretty.
Maybe he's changed his ways.
Well, yeah, I think sadly, and you see a lot of artists when they're making music, and they're really good at it. They do things and it just kind of gets amplified. So that was I think like with him, like I said, he was making a few videos and looked like he was claiming blood. I don't know what said or anything, but. Either way, back to the wall, I would say, you could be in a different part of the country and that wall could be all white, and it could be a Gangster Disciple chapter. You know what I mean? Or it could
is Gangster Disciple. I don't know. Is that a white gang?
No. It traditionally it was not, but like I said, the enrollment opens up like they're not. They move a little differently. So when they're setting up like chapters or like basically the equivalent of a set, it depends on who's setting up that chapter and who's kind of kind of calling the shots in that area. So there are areas in the South where you've got, these lines of like Insane Gangster Disciples or IGD, and it'll be predominantly white males, but like I said, in the city you're talking about, you may have a set that does that excludes white. So you're going to have a whole wall of maybe, 30, 40, some of these sets get, 200-300 members. And if their code of conduct says no whites allowed, then you're not going to have whites in that gang. And the gang spreads quickly through friends. You know what I mean? So
Right.
if a kid, I say kid, if a person, let's say, is like, so we're talking about the South. So let's say someone is 9 Trey blood. And when I say 9 Trey blood, I'm talking about a set of bloods that are East Coast in origin that started in New York back in like 1993 in Rikers Island. So when you follow bloods, you go all the way back to LA back in the early to mid 70s. You see basically people starting to claim blood and wearing red bandanas. That's West Coast bloods. That's all in origin, right? But then you see this UBN, United Blood Nations, start in New York in the mid 90s, right, in 1993. So anyway, out of that nation, you have all these multiple sets, these smaller organizations, and then they just spread right through people moving out of New York and moving to the South. So you may have somebody that moves from New York, moves down to the South, settles down in could be a big city, any of the major cities in the South, but kind of realizes, hey, there's not really a gang presence. You got crews that sell drugs, but there's nothing organized. All of a sudden they start recruiting people. So whoever they know, they recruit, right?
Right.
And it just starts to spread. Now with 9 Trays specifically, they charge dues, right? So they'll charge like $31 usually once a week or maybe once a month, right? So if that person settles down in a city and they start that set and they're charging those dues, they're making money to sit back. It's basically a pyramid scheme, right?
Right.
So as they're recruiting people, now they're going to promise the people they recruit rank. So they may say, hey, you can be a 5-star general and I'll let you, recruit as many people as you want. And you get a cut of the money when they pay the dues, right? So that's how you'll see a set like 9 Trey start in a city. And within a year, they can get their numbers up to 200 or 300 people, right? Because of that, because everybody wants to be able to sit back and bring people into a pyramid scheme and get ranked basically for free, right?
And so these ranks, these are like, so I remember just, with the gang beads, right? Like This is where you can put kind of like your rank structure on your gang beads, or is the gang beads more of like to identify what gang you.
Yeah. So you may see, and that was a big trend several years ago. Like, and when you're talking about beads, everybody just kind of has to picture a shoestring with like
Anal beads. They're just anal beads. And each size of the anal bead, the more you get in your ass, the higher rank you are. Okay. I'm kidding. Nothing to do with anal beads.
Right. So a shoestring with just Michael's beads, like just crafts beads, man. Nothing crazy.
Michael's beads.
Seriously, right? Like a craft store. You just go in, you buy these beads, and then so like if we're going to stick with 9 Trey blood, they may have black and red beads on there, and then they may have something on there that says like 9 Trey, or a 9 and a 3. They may have a rank on there, like 5 stars. So they may have like 5 actual stars, like on their beads. So it just kind of comes and goes. Right now, you may not see a whole lot of it. Give it another 5 years and it'll come back.
The new trend is those fucking butt plugs with the little thing on the end that has like a little diamond shape. So now like they'll have just like, you'll just say like 8 and it'll be red. Shit. That's the newest trend. I've seen it's all over TikTok, like nurses in particular trying to like go whole shifts with these things. And it's a whole thing. I literally, somebody just sent that in the message as I was talking about anal beads, so I thought I would bring it up. But you got into this whole underground kind of gang scene because you weren't in any gangs as a younger kid, but you ran with this kind of like underground punk scene, this kind of like skater, like bowl skating, kind of Tony Hawk Bones Brigade type shit with your own little club, like your own little clique. Is that what kind of got you involved later on in life?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it just gave me a perspective of I guess some people call them like subcultures, or just like different little enclaves of kids doing their own thing. So I was like about 9-10 years old when I first got into skating, and my older brother and his friends were all into it. and punk rock had like really just started hitting in the South. So when I got into that whole scene, it was like, okay, now we were already sort of outsiders, because your parents are divorced and everybody's just kind of struggling to make
Right.
ends meet,
Prepubescent daddy issues.
Yeah.
Right.
So then,
Are you okay, by the way? I mean, are you good?
Oh yeah, I'm
Okay.
fucking solid, man. So no, just got into that. And because you didn't have gangs in the South like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I mean, we got in trouble here and there. You just kind of like form up little cliques or little groups of people and go see bands play, and a fight breaks out or something. And you just try to help each other out. But when I got on as a cop, it was just kind of like, I don't want to sit around and write speeding tickets. I don't want to sit in a parking lot and drink coffee and wait for a call. I'd rather just, you drop me off in a neighborhood, give me a beat, and then let me find the most violent people or the most violent group, and then we can work from there. So what kind of fascinated me with that is seeing like 15-year-olds that were a lot like me, probably dealing with a lot of same stuff I was, but then to see that instead of them like going to go see some punk rock bands play and seeing some positivity, they've got older dudes putting crack in their hands and basically telling them this is what being a man is about. So a lot of that was building rapport with gang members and seeing things maybe from a different point of view and not just a RoboCop, I go out and write tickets and that sort of thing. It was more of like, all right, there's a bigger problem here. There are people joining this gang or these sets all over the city. Like overnight, these gangs are just expanding. And how are we going to address that? So it had to be a lot of sitting down and talking to people and getting one-on-one with people and kind of learning why someone joins a gang. So like in your class, it was a shortened version of my week-long class. Like in a week-long class, we get into what I call like gang templates. Like each person, why they join a gang, like what's their personality and what motivates them into the gang. So you know what I mean? So it's like, you don't just like, every gang member is not the exact same, just like every cop is not the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think you had a couple of confidential informants come and talk to us, and I thought that was like really brilliant. It was really crazy just getting to hear their story and just kind of getting to see where they're at, and then talking about the importance of confidential informants and really building the rapport. I mean, you've had such a big rapport that you've been on like some crazy high profile cases. I know one case that you worked on where a three letter agency may or may not have recruited you to take down a kidnapping where there was a government official who was literally kidnapped by gang members. And you guys had, you ran into these guys or something, or you knew of these guys.
So yeah, it was just at that time I was doing a different assignment that was focusing on a certain blood set, and that incident happened. So I wasn't like lead or anything like that on the case. I was just asked to come in and look at certain, like what we call litter or pocket litter or writings and stuff. So the person that kind of orchestrated that whole kidnapping and that thing was a longtime gang member. So I spent a couple of weekends coming in and looking over all of that information and having to kind of explain what the gang was, what the set was, how and why that person would have the type of power that they had. Because to an average person, they can't understand why anybody would do the things that gang members do. You know what I mean? Like they're just like, well, who is this guy? Like he's not even from the South. Like why would anybody follow his rules or why anybody would be conned into doing this type of thing. So it kind of opens the door to like understand too that there's a wealth of knowledge in local cops or agencies that work hand in hand with other agencies, what I mean, like the federal agencies. So it's not this whole world of like in TV, where it's like, oh, cops don't like the FBI or ATF or DEA or any of that. It's a lot of actually working together to go after gangs and stuff. So to be able to sit and read someone's personal writings and why they do what they do kind of gives you a little more insight too, and their personality and how they actually see the gang and how they derive power from that gang and have people under them. Just like anything, some some bosses, some supervisors are really good and they take care of their people, and others are really, really abusive, and you know what I mean? And they're always threatening to fire people or whatever.
So for you, let's talk about some of these gangs that are motorcycle gangs, for instance. They are very good at their appearance in public, right? I've seen them at golfing events. I've seen them at toy drives. But they're still rocking like ball peen hammers on their jackets, or sometimes you might even see an advertisement. You might see football players throwing up gang signs in the middle of a game. What's going on with like, how do these gangs kind of work the public and getting in the public's eyes, and how that's kind of becoming a thing right now where they're like actually building rapport with citizens to actually, like, I don't know, is it like sympathize with them?
Well, yeah, it's a lot of the longer a gang is in existence, the smarter they become, right? Because if they're not really that smart, they don't operate a little, I don't want to say safer, but they don't adapt, then they end up usually getting wrapped up in like a RICO, like a federal investigation, and they're locked up for that. These organizations that start spreading throughout states and now countries are doing it because they're pretty good at public affairs, so they may do. And I mean, I don't want to, some people actually do care, and they can still be a gang member or in a motorcycle club and still care about kids. You know what I mean? Like they can still do a toy drive or do whatever. I mean, it's not like they're complete monsters. You know what I mean? Like they're just always committing crimes. So a lot of that probably is some guys, personality coming out. But gangs have gotten really good at doing that, at being able to do a public affairs kind of thing, or show that they're not what people say they are. So you can pull up like YouTube, I think, should still have some videos on Almighty Latin King and Queen Nation out of New York, which technically Latin King started in Chicago back in like 1957. But you can pull up some of their videos on YouTube where they really pushed a campaign to show the public and show citizens that they are not a gang. And it was pushed back because in New York, they had a huge problem with Latin Kings in the, I think it's like mid 90s. And they were, you can watch documentaries on it and stuff, but this was kind of their counter to that, was to be able to do that and run for political offices as well. So if you look at Chicago-based gangs, they've always kind of been a step ahead of other gangs in that sense, that they'll actually run for political office. So anybody, you could just like Google, Latin Kings, government officials, or Latin Kings elections, or stuff like that, and you'll probably pull up quite a few.
We've got a question here from DZB or DZ8. DZB says, "Did you guys talk about Kazim yet?" I don't know. Do you know what that means?
I don't know what that means either.
Kazim.
Sorry.
I have no idea what that means. DZB, but we're gonna take some calls here right after I get done with these amazing ad reads that we've got to get through, because that's what keeps this shit show on the air, as Ross Patterson says. And guess what? The great Ross Patterson, the Godfather himself, he's back. He's back to life. It was really great to see his face today on Ross Patterson Revolution. I was stoked. But first up, we've got Ghostbed. We absolutely love Ghostbed. They've been a loyal sponsor with the Drinking Bros for over the past 5 years. Everyone raves about them. They have super comfortable mattresses that last forever, and they're made in the good old USA, baby. Every mattress has a 20-year warranty. Some of them have 25. You can try it out for 101 nights, not 98, not 99, but 101, baby. If you don't like it, you can send them back. No hard feelings. But you won't. One of my favorite parts about Ghostbed is that each mattress has that cooling technology in it. You know how hot it gets in North Carolina during the summers, but this cooling technology help you stay cool while staying hard, baby. Ghostbed also offers bundles so that you can get everything you need. You don't even have to really think about it. Just choose from their 4 mattresses and pick your bundle. Whether you just need a mattress and a frame, or you want it all with their cooling pillows and sheets, you can get the best bang for your buck. Right now, Ghostbed is offering 40% off Ghostbed bundles, where you get a mattress and adjustable base, or 30% off of everything if you use the promo code Drinkin' Bros. That's DRINKIN Bros at ghostbed.com/Drinkin' Bros. You can buy a mattress for $35 a month, 0 down, 0% financing. And that's if you've got UBN credit. So go check out ghostbed.com drinking bros. Yes, sir. Next one, last one that we've got here tonight before we're going to take your calls. Go ahead and post up the phone number if you guys have any questions, any kind of gang related night shift questions. But our next sponsor for tonight's amazing show is Policy Genius. I hope you have life insurance talking all this shit about gangs, because I'm going to take a hit out on you. But if someone relies on your financial support, whether it's a child, aging parent, or even a business partner, you need life insurance. Life insurance can give you peace of mind that if something happens to you, your loved ones would have a financial cushion to pay for things like rent, mortgage payments, loans, education costs, everyday expenses. Having coverage through your job may not be enough. Most people need as much as 10 times more to properly provide for their families. Typically, life insurance gets more expensive as you age, so it's smart to get a policy sooner rather than later. Head to policygenius.com/drinkingbros and answer a few questions about yourself. In minutes, you can work on how much life insurance coverage you need and compare personalized quotes to find your best price. You could save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/drinkingbros. Get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. Policygenius.com/drinkingbros. To start comparing quotes and simplify insurance buying, go ahead and check them out. Thank you so much, Policy Genius, for sponsoring today's show. They're a new sponsor to us, so if you guys need life insurance, head over there. If we've got any calls, Jimmy, let me know. Listen, I miss Mike too. I see it in the comments. It's night shift. All right. Everybody gets sick sometimes. Everybody needs a day off. Give me a break. Jimmy, we got any callers on the line, baby?
Nothing yet.
Oh, really? I thought maybe DZB would be calling in already. He had some good questions. What do we got? Latin Kings, we're on 60 Days In. Amber HHH Bono producer says, do you watch 60 Days In at all?
I haven't
PC?
seen it yet. I do want to watch it though. I think that's isn't that where like people get locked up and do like they volunteer to do it, right? Or no?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so this DZB says Raleigh PD put a man in cuffs in his own house while he was in his underwear after he responded for a burglary quarrel. It's off topic, but I just got here. The guy's name was Kazim. Yeah, no, we have no idea. Sorry about that, DZB. Who do we have here? Guy FUIS. Go FUIS. What is Go FUIS? Enhanced criminal penalties for being a gang member. Gang membership is now underground. BC, is there additional charges for being a gang member?
Some states will do like enhancements. So you may be charged with a shooting and the person's found guilty of the shooting, but that state may have enhancements, meaning if that person is a gang member and part of a criminal organization, they may get extended time on their sentence. But the actual being a member of a gang is for most states is not illegal. That's more of a federal thing, like a RICO statute.
Yes. I'm familiar with the RICO statute. Where did that come from?
So it basically originated back when La Cosa Nostra or the mafia, were running these criminal organizations. The FBI and the Department of Justice basically worked hand in hand to dismantle a family through that. So basically, if someone is a higher ranking and they're giving orders and that organization commits violence or is somehow, like operating that way, then they can charge them federally. It's more of a long-term case that may take months or years to do. So I think some states have tried to kind of mimic that and do like a state level RICO, meaning that you could be charged, but that's state by state basis.
I've got two other questions here. Listen, if you want to call in, the number is below or it's coming across your screen. Text first your name, what you want to talk about, and then we'll call you back, and then you can ask your questions online. But for right now, Aiden Nicholas has a question. He says, what was the wisest shit you saw gang members do? Maybe something that surprised you for the gang's typical behavior.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess you could call it a false flag operation, but one set of Crips actually were trying to get two sets of Bloods to beef. So I'll explain it in simple terms. One blood doesn't always like another blood just because they're bloods, right?
Right.
So what you can end up having is a city can have multiple blood sets, meaning different groups of bloods. They have a completely different chain of command. They don't think about, and this is a horrible example. Think about it in Copland, right? So if you meet someone and they're a cop, you don't know who they are. I mean, you don't work for their department, you don't work for their organization, right? But you're both cops. So it's the same way in the gang world. A blood, just because a blood is a blood, doesn't mean that they're in the same group, right? It's a set. So
Okay.
so in cities, you'll see blood on blood violence, one set versus the other set, right? So what ends up happening is, like in this case, a Crip set came in and wore red bandanas, like flagged up, put red bandanas over their face, rode by a street and shot at Bloods and yelled out the rival blood set that they had beef with. So that block realized or thought, oh no, so-and-so set, right, just shot us up. So what this Crip set wanted was two blood sets to go to war so that we would come in and focus on them, because that's what we do. We focus on the most violent set, arrest them on everything we can, and leave that block open. And they already had a plug. They already were getting into the cocaine game. So what they want to do is clear that block of the existing crack, heroin, and cocaine dealers. So they did that, right? So to me, that was like, okay,
damn,
this Crip set is operating completely different than other gangs, right? So when you start to debrief guys within that organization, you realize there's usually one or two people in there that influence everyone else. And there was a guy in that set that read books and studied documentaries and would talk about the art of war, and he was moving on a completely different level than everybody else. So he had basically pitched that, and that's what they ended up doing, which was genius, and nobody else picked up on that. Detectives were actually talking about, oh, we know exactly who did it because they yelled their set and they were wearing red bandanas. But then when we actually got those guys in custody and recovered the red bandanas and the weapons and figured out what happened, it was like, man, they were actually, like I said, moving on a different level. So that was a good question. That's
Alexander Less says street rats deserve no respect. I know that in your gang class, you kind of had something to say about respect and how to treat gang members.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple, I guess, equation. If you walk on the block, if you patrol an area every day, that's your beat, and you disrespect people constantly, the people are going to fight back, right? So gang members are, if you go out there and disrespect people, and they're going to target you basically, right? So if you go out there and just build rapport and talk to people and show them respect, they'll show you respect, right? So a lot of times, 20 years ago, there was this idea of we have to prove that we're in control and command. So we dominate. And I say we, I'm talking about police work, would dominate an area and dominate, try to dominate a gang. It just doesn't work that way. You end up creating enemies. If you go out there and patrol your beat and focus on people and deal with their problems and try to just at least show respect. And a perfect example is when an officer goes to actually search a gang member, and let's say they're flagging, meaning they've got a bandana on display, right? Like their flag, and it's folded nice and neatly, let's say in the back right pocket. As an officer is going to search them, if the officer will simply explain, I've got to remove your flag from your pocket. I don't mean any disrespect, but I've got to do it. Now that I've touched it as a cop, I know it's contaminated and you don't want it back. You tell me what you want me to do with this flag. Do you want me to just throw it away because I've touched it, or do you want me to put it back in your pocket? You tell me what you want to do. And a lot of times gang members know that you're trying to show them respect, so they may say, yeah, put it back in my pocket. Or I've had guys say, no, you can throw it away. You touched it. Your pig hands have contaminated. And I'm like, cool, I got you. So it's small things like that. I've seen people in years past pull a flag out of a pocket, cuss a gang member out, and throw it on the ground and step on it. I mean, that's being stupid and ignorant. You just don't do stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's just like if you've got, there were some gang members that really pissed me off, and when I worked with them, they were really annoying. But you disrespecting their flag is not a personal attack on them. It's all the other gang members that they're sitting with that are going to see that, and they're also going to take it personally. So,
Right.
although you think you're getting at the little chump in front of you, what you're not is you're pissing off the 6 dudes next to him. So maybe the gang flag is not where you want to go. And I listen, there was a officer that we worked with. Thank God he left the department very early, but he wrapped a blood gang flag around his shoe, took a picture of it, and put it on Facebook around his work boot. And I just thought, there wasn't any place for that kind of disrespect, because that makes everybody's jobs harder, to be honest.
Yeah, that's like I said, so, and you see the trend that most officers that would do something as stupid as that usually don't stay in law enforcement, right? Because believe it or not, I mean, most people are pretty professional. So something like that wouldn't last long. Not to mention, it also sends a message to the community or to the beat, the area, that type of officer is not going to be professional, right? And it's going to make it worse when the next uniform officer shows up, because the gang may say, well, the last dude did this. They may take their anger out on that officer, and that's where building rapport and talking to gang members. And like I said, people are humans, so just talk to people like human beings, help people out when you can. Just because they're a gang member doesn't mean you can't cut them a break and be like, all right, don't trespass at 3 a.m, or, I mean, whatever the violation is. If you can give a verbal warning, I say give it. You know what I mean? Build a rapport and try to cut down the violence. That's the number one thing.
Davey asks on here, do you have any experience with 1%ers or motorcycle clubs? And look, I've got a question kind of based on that. I think here on the East Coast, when I first became a cop, I did not really see a lot of motorcycle gang movement. It seems like in my last couple of years as being a cop, it was getting really bad. Now it's kind of like almost an everyday thing. I'm starting to see ball peen hammers everywhere. I'm starting to see cuts all over the place. I'm in North Carolina. But I've definitely seen kind of an uptick in 1%ers in my area. Do you know anything about 1%ers or anything like that?
Yeah, I know about it. I haven't worked them obviously at length the way I have like what some people call street gangs or whatever. But so one of the reasons you're probably seeing a lot more on the East Coast and especially in the South is that some of these nations are just growing. These motorcycle clubs are growing. And just like in the gang world, you may have what they call flipping, like a blood may flip from one set to another. So they may be, one group and then they transfer to another. There are some trends in some states in the South where person rides with one club and then they end up patching over or joining another club. So there's a lot of expansion going on where you'll see multiple chapters pop up. It seems like almost overnight. So you're right. Like in the South and a lot of the East Coast, you didn't necessarily see a lot of those clubs. And you're probably seeing it mimic just like gangs, any population shift you have a lot of people moving to the South, right? So with that, they're going to bring that type of lifestyle. Or you may have someone who's in a club, like a 1%er club, and they end up, being like a contractor working on a military post or something. Maybe they're a plumber or electrician or whatever. And then they get transferred and they start working on a different army post. Well, they may end up starting a chapter there or something. I mean, it spreads in all different ways. But it's definitely on the growing end where you're seeing some of these clubs popping up in other countries. Like I said earlier, they're getting very organized.
Is there any reason for an uptick in violence
yeah. So
gang?
Yeah, all it takes is, so you may have gangs that traditionally, or clubs that traditionally don't get along, right? That they've had some type of violence in the past. And that may be more, let's say in California, and it may not translate into the South, but you're going to see violence probably in the South and along the East Coast as these clubs expand, because now one club may want to take over that area. It's almost like they will often break up a city or a county or something, or a region, and they control it. You know what I mean? So you'll see that bottom rocker on a jacket that may say, like you said, in North Carolina, you may see a bottom rocker that says North Carolina. Well, that club's now claiming that area. And sometimes people don't get along with that. And all it really takes in a city is one club to commit violence against the other club, and then it's like a declaration of war. So then you're going to see the uptick in violence because there's already been that incident. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Right.
so if you want to predict the future, follow your news stories in the next 6 months to 2 years in the South, and you're probably going to see a lot more shootings and stabbings between clubs as clubs expand and encroach on other people's area.
That's interesting. Being that police departments are having recruiting crises and things like that, and that they are letting down their guard, kind of letting more people in. Do you see an uptick? I know that the military at one time saw that there was a lot of gang members actually trying to infiltrate into the military so they could learn tactics and techniques and bring them back to the streets. You see that happening in law enforcement at all?
I don't know about law enforcement. There's a really good book out there called Just Gangs in the Military. That's what it's called. And the guy that wrote it was actually
a creative title.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably really good for just when people Google and they go, "Oh, here's a book on gangs in the military." But the guy that wrote it actually was a CID agent or whatever you call it in the Army. And this was back in like the mid 90s when the Army, where was it? I think it was out of Bragg. A Nazi skinhead had actually shot at a interracial couple. And so then the Army kind of realized, hey, we got this Nazi skinhead thing going on. And CID came in and started investigating, all these different divisions. And I remember at one point you had to go into your commander's office and take every bit of clothing off. And then they had to check all your tattoos to see if, you were a Nazi skinhead or whatever. They did it to everybody. And this guy, the way he writes the book and does some of his presentations, he's like, yeah, we learned that the good news was we didn't have a lot of Nazi skinheads. The bad news was we had a lot of gang members, like a lot. And it was true. It was, guys were either trying to get out of having to serve time or get out of charges and stuff. So they end up joining the military. And I'm sure it's still the same way. I don't know necessarily with police work, people trying to join a police department with any kind of gang background, but you probably do have some guys that were gang members at a very young age, went away and either served in the military or just moved to grandma's house in a different state or something, got out of that lifestyle and now want to contribute and actually kind of pay back to society. And maybe they want to be cops and probably be really good cops as long as they, aren't still in the gang and paying dues.
Right.
Hey guys, we got DZB on the line here.
Oh, DZB. Oh, I sorry, DZB. It looked like almost like a DZ8 on the chats just because I'm sitting, I'm old and I can't see my computer. What's going on, DZ?
Yeah, what's going on?
How you doing, man? You got a question for BC Sanders?
Yeah, I do actually. So I started off as a campus cop. I've been a campus cop more than I've been a middle school cop. I've been a middle school cop for a short time. I never worked in big city, just saw a small town. But funny thing, the debate we used to have on campus a lot was these fraternities and sororities. A lot of times, but I guess the kind of the same initiation processes as I would argue as a certain street gangs and things like that. In terms of you're wearing the same colors, you represent the same group, and oftentimes there's an initiation process. But I guess the difference would be that these fraternities and sororities are doing philanthropy things. They're seen as good for certain communities. But then, I mean, in my experience, and especially in bigger cities, and especially in the past, there's a lot of street gangs who are also holding, like humanitarian events or fundraisers and things for, their inner youth or people that, actually benefited from there being street gangs there. But BC, I just wanted to know, I guess, your opinion on certain street gangs that actually do have a humanitarian aspect to them on one side. And there's even some that show that, coming up front. And then, but they do still have that criminal side underneath, and abolishing those things would take out a lot of the humanitarian thing. What's your opinion on that?
That's an interesting take, DZ, because I have realized myself that there's a lot of these military motorcycle clubs that are starting to pick out too, as well as some of the other things. And what I've noticed is that they don't take away. So like they start as like philanthropists and people who want to raise money and people who want to do well, but because they are a motorcycle club, there's always this side of them that they're almost like they're wannabe bad guys. So I see them doing like a lot of things, and they meet and they try to emulate so much of the negative side of those gangs. It's always been interesting to me. I'm like, okay, so you started this club because of all the all the things that you want to do good, but then why do you try to emulate all the negative things that some of these gangs do? That's great. What is your take on that, PC?
Yeah, so like anything, you can have people in a gang that want to do good things. They want to help people, right? And talking to, I've probably talked to hundreds of gang members, and especially the younger they are, the more they're kind of manipulated when they join the gang. And a lot of times they're told that they're going to be helping the community. They're going to be doing things for the community, that the dues that they pay are actually going to be helping out, their fellow gang members. And like I had one guy, the first time I'd ever heard about paying dues and being manipulated, a guy had basically crashed a stolen car. Long story short, he's in the back of the car and he's worried because he's going to be, this is probably going to be like his third or fourth felony charge. And he's a young dude. But he started telling me about how upset he was with the gang because he was told when he joined the gang, we're here for the community. The gang is all about the community. He's like, and since I've joined, I've been shooting at other men, been stabbing people, fighting, and basically I just do whatever they tell me to do. And I haven't done, as he said, I ain't done shit for the community. I'm actually making it worse. And I mean, he was, I say young, he's like 20 years old, and he came to that realization and started crying and was mad because he had joined the gang and had bought into it completely, and then realized how many felonies he had caught for the gang and done stuff that they asked him to do. And really, he wanted to do something for the community. You know what I mean? Like, it was, he didn't have a father at home. His mom was maybe there for him, maybe not, but he saw this gang as something that on the surface was good for him. But once he joined and got, underneath that surface, he realized this is all about violence. And actually, a lot of times violence against guys that he grew up with, So for him, he's just in the backseat of my car crying and telling me about this. Then I kind of started realizing the sales pitches that go on and the manipulation and grooming that goes on with young guys to join a gang. So
this might be a weird point for you, but there are a lot of things going on in the chat now that brings up DZ's points about fraternities and Masonic organizations, the difference between kind of gangbangers and academics. Do you see any kind of correlation with those kind of groups and gangs, or is it just completely different? And why would you think it's completely different?
Yeah, I don't. The only correlation I would see is how the gang is structured. You know what I mean? Like how people are in charge, and people have to kind of follow rules. And if they don't follow rules, usually there's a code of conduct they have to follow. That at their monthly meetings or even sometimes weekly meetings, if they violate those rules, then it's brought in front of everybody and they actually get punished, Right. As far as like fraternities and stuff, I wasn't in a fraternity.
You're not fucking drive-by shooting people.
Right.
Not putting the community at risk. I mean, just because you're fucking dropping cinder blocks with ropes tied to your ding dong, just because you're taking spankings on the ass,
right?
You're not fucking doing drive-by shootings and gang raping bloodettes, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't see a correlation there. Like
no, I don't either.
With that, I would just say, like, on a nerdy sociological perspective, maybe with why people join, but no, I think for the most part, fraternities are probably doing a lot of good work out there. I would assume. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to maintain a good grade. Go ahead, DZ.
Imagine just a decent brawl or a decent fight between, I guess, two, rival fraternities or sororities to, turn them into gang. That would always just be the debate. When does it stop? To get, certain fights, or I guess it depends on the level of crime. This is gang. Let's charge them with gang violence or something like that.
No, I don't think you can charge them with gang violence. I mean, anytime you have you can have fucking Bills Mafia fans fucking fighting at Buffalo Bills games against Philadelphia Eagles or some bullshit like that. Doesn't mean that like Buffalo fans are a gang organization. But no, I mean, I definitely think it was a great point of talking, and we really appreciate that, DZ, and thanks for tuning in tonight, and what a great little conversation piece that was. There's a lot of things going on in the crowd. I'm trying to go through them all right now. A lot of people like the spanking in the ass with paddles. A bunch of perverts in the chat tonight. My kind of people. But BC, as far as like the underground goes with punk rock and things, Antifa, right? Antifa. Do you see that as a gang?
I don't know about gang necessarily, because I'm always thinking like the criminal aspect. I guess like destroying property, maybe. It's just kind of weird to me because you can go, like, I still go see shows, like I see bands play, punk and hardcore and ska.
What
and
are
everything
some of
else.
your favorite punk bands, by the way?
Oh man. So when I talk about punk, people go, "Oh yeah, I like punk too. I remember Green Day," and it's no disrespect to Green Day. It's just
That's not punk.
that was like who really kind of, I guess, plugged it into mainstream and stuff. But I go all the way back to like Dead Kennedys, Minor Threat, Circle Jerks, then into Naked Reagan. I mean, even up to now, you've got bands like Orphan Riot that are out there.
I've seen
Reckless
Orphan
Threat,
Riot play.
right? Like there's a younger generation. I mean, they've got some YouTube videos. Reckless Threat. I mean, they're a little older, but they're still playing that like old school punk. Rabbit Assault, right? They're out of like California. They play like that old like skate rock, like just stripped down fast music to listen to when you skate. But then you can go to like Rancid. Like that's the one band that a lot of people have heard. And some people say, oh, they're sellouts or whatever. That's like one of the greatest bands ever, And if we're talking music, and I won't take up too much more time about it, but you can look at Rancid and then every band that those members have, Charger, Old Firm Casuals, Lars Fredrickson, The Bastards, The Devil's Brigade, like all these are bands that Rancid band members are playing in. And then they come back and they make a Rancid album, and then they go, of course, Operation Ivy, right? But
yeah. I'm a big fan of, matter of fact, today, the skate park. I think one of the, I wasn't really skating a lot today. I was more or less chasing my children around. We were actually in Wilmington, and we're with two other little skate grumps here. They skipped school today to go on a little skate tour with us, which was a lot of fun. But they played some old school AFI, like some old
okay.
90s AFI, which I'm really into. Not so much into their new shit, but the old AFI stuff was really cool. I think it's cool what you kind of do. You write for a magazine, and I like that you have this whole punk underground culture thing going on that's really your passion. And I've gotten to meet you a couple times, and like, dude, you look like a fucking punk rocker out of the late 80s, man. And it's crazy because you don't look like a cop at all. And then, all the conversations that you and I have ever had has always been around skateboarding and punk rock music. So I think it's really cool to see you, or it was to see you in a class where you were turned on business. I would have loved to have worked with you. I think it would have been really, really cool. See here, I'm getting another message. Don't text message my personal phone. Text the line that the producer has. He'll put it up there if you guys want to call in. We're going to go for about 5 more minutes. We'll take one more phone call. Anybody got anything that they want to ask BC before we go? While we wait for that call to come in, BC, what do you got? That's do you watch sports at all?
No, not at all. I haven't watched sports since was it Lawrence Taylor broke Joe Theismann's leg.
Yeah,
you don't even know what
that must have been last season.
I was like a little kid. No, I never got in. After like 10 years old, I kind of stopped watching sports. No disrespect. I got.
Aiden Nicholas says, was it always just work? The job, does it become personal on certain people that you worked on? Was there other cases where it was personal, or was it always just a job? And how did you separate it?
No, I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing, but it's always personal in the sense that every like gang member I would meet, and that's why I would usually try to spend more than like 2 minutes, during the encounter to really kind of get an idea of why they're doing what they're doing. But it gets personal when you watch a kid on the block grow up and all of a sudden they join the gang and you're trying to talk them out of it. And then flash forward a year or two later, and they're either dead from gunshot wounds in the same block you talk to them, or they end up in a interview room, and they're being charged with murder or shooting or robbery. And you see them and know them from the neighborhood, and yet they're doing something that's going to put them in prison for 5 years to life. That's tough. That's hard. So a lot of people would think it's like, oh yeah, let's celebrate. But a lot of times you don't because you know that's a human being leaving behind 1, 2, 3, 4, however many kids that are going to grow up with their dad in prison who did something. A lot of times it was in furtherance of a gang. Yeah, that gets tough.
We got Noah on the phone. What's up, Noah?
What's up?
How are you?
I'm pretty good. Just in my college dorm room trying to crank out a paper right now. I was watching you guys' stream.
Sure, man. What you got? You got a question?
I do. So I'm actually in college for criminal justice, and I'm hopefully going to be a law enforcement officer within like the next 2 years. And one of the biggest questions I have is, what can I do now to prepare myself and better understand how gangs work and everything else?
That's a pretty good question. Check this out. This is what I would do. I mean, if you want to know really good advice, and if you can do it, change your major. I don't know how far along you are, but criminal justice, and this is no disrespect, is kind of redundant. You're going to learn a lot of that stuff in the academy. If you dig psychology, I would probably say take psychology, like as a major, or sociology, or a foreign language. Noah, are you like close to graduating?
So I'm actually a junior.
Okay.
So I'm pretty close.
Well, then scratch that. Look, don't worry about it. Graduate with your criminal justice degree. Watch some documentaries on gangs and stuff. The thing I would say is right now, figure out what it is that you want to do in cop work or in police work. And then when you graduate, find a department that specializes in that. And you're going to find that every police department out there is going to try and hire you. I mean, it's bonkers out there right now. So it's good for you. You can pick and choose whatever department. But find a department that actually has a lot of crime and maybe even has a gang unit, and try and talk to somebody on that gang unit themselves, and get those questions answered.
I think another kind of a thing, Noah, is when you get on the force, how you encounter gang members and how you deal with them is where you're going to learn the most. So if you get out and you treat them like gang members and you treat them like they're committing crimes, and your only encounter with them is enforcement related, meaning that you're going to write a ticket or do something that you're not going to really learn that much. But if you come on and you see a gang member, if you see a group of guys sitting on the porch and your training officer says, yeah, like those dudes are all, 8 trays or 9 trays or whatever, UBNs, whatever they are. If you get out of your car and just simply walk over there and say, hey guys, what's going on? Hey, I'm like, just be honest with the man. Like, hey, I'm new to the area. And, they say that you guys are, and just say what they're not. Like, say, I heard you guys were UBNs, and they'll be like, what, motherfucker? No, we're not. And then you'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. What are you? You know what I mean? And you like genuinely try to, I mean, sometimes they're going to tell you just to fuck right. They're probably going to tell you to fuck off the first 2 or 3 times. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But it's really having those encounters that are outside of enforcement that you're really going to learn a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And Noah, I would say, if you're on Instagram, just shoot me a message or something. I'll get you some resources that, some decent books, documentaries and stuff, or answer any of your questions.
Or just join. I mean, you're in high school, or you're in college, join your local blood gang. Just go and join right now before you're a cop.
Yeah.
Feel it out. Join a couple of them. It's just $31 a week, dude. It's
you can
fucking
do that.
The only problem with that is I'm in the middle of bumfuck Ohio, so I don't necessarily know if there's any
there are
gangs
plenty
around.
of gangs in Ohio. Plenty.
Oh yeah.
They're everywhere. Just understand that. There are gangs in every city. I mean, you can go out in the suburbs and find them. Nowhere's safe.
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to find your Instagram, and I looked it up on the what's on the screen, and I couldn't find it. What's your Instagram?
Okay, Noah, you're in college, right?
I'm gonna be a fucking cop, right, Noah?
Right, yeah. So here you go. Here's some problem solving. Do B dot, like as in a period, C dot as in a period, Sanders, and it should come up.
So that's I pulled up. Okay, cool.
Did you find it? It's pretty easy, dude.
Earlier, and I was like, that's not the same one that's on the screen, so I didn't think it was that. So.
I'm messing.
We should put the right one on the screen. We should put the right one. That was our fault, Noah. I apologize for that. That's overpay producer. That's why we pay him so much money. Because he fucking.
Hey, Noah. Just so you know,
I
don't put police stuff usually up there. Just DM me or whatever, and I'll shoot you some stuff.
Your Instagram is actually really entertaining. It's really cool. It's all very like vague and discreet and like super old school punk rocky pictures and photos and bands and memorabilia.
Yeah.
Ice Water says that his gang charged $30 a month. So there you go. I mean, fucking, you get a whole $1 a week discount, which really adds up over time.
Yeah,
really adds up over time. What's your favorite gang, PC?
I don't have a favorite, but I will.
You just love them all. They're like your children. You just love each one of them individually.
I will say that probably the more craftier gang would be like eight Trade Crips were pretty crafty. But like I said, you got to think I've probably, I don't know, taught 30 or 40 different types of gangs. So a lot of them are very similar when I'm teaching them. But
right. Drew Lamax, I'm just going to call him out on the show. Anyway, he's been texting me, asking me why I'm in Wilmington and I didn't let everybody know. The same reason why I didn't let anybody know that Mike wasn't gonna be on the show, because I didn't know until the very last second that I was coming down here. It was one of these things where we had some friends that said, hey, let's go skating. We're going to pull our kids out of school for a couple of days. But Drew, longtime drinking bro, a good buddy of ours, and I've gotten to meet him at a couple of Drinking Bros outings, and then also he's been up to some Drinking Bros Sports tailgate legend stuff, and he cooks one hell of a pig. So Drew, I'm sorry from the bottom of my heart that I didn't reach out to you. It was all about the kids today, though. It was all about my children. Look, if you go on to failuretostop.com, we've got a lot of more badass shirts right before the Christmas holiday. Order them now because they're printing shirts like fucking crazy. And we're still new to the game of the shirts. So if you want to get it before Christmas, you got to order it today. Use that promo code GUGU that stands for Guns Up Giddy Up. It's GUGU. Follow b.c.sanders on Instagram. Thoughts, THOTS, and prayers for Michael. And listen, I love it when you guys stick around. I know that you're upset when he's not here. I know the show's different when he's not here. I get that. But the show must go on. And, if he's not here, I've got to do what I've got to do and what amount of time. And I appreciate the patience and I appreciate you guys sticking around. If you're still around, there's 179 of you. You got 143 on the like button. Go ahead and hit that like button. Hit that thumbs up. Do it for the gangs. Do it for the UBNs. Do it for what other gangs are out there? Do it for all of them. Do it for Antifa. Do it for Anne Frank. What?
Remember the Skittles?
What were the Skittles?
The grape slushies and the Skittles. That was some gangs that I was in when I was growing up.
Oh, grape slushies and the Skittles.
Yeah.
We did do slushies after all of our ultimate Frisbee tournaments. We always went out for slushies afterwards. Diego Arojo says, BC, would you be in 60 days in so you can learn more about life in jail if you were offered the opportunity?
No.
Fuck no.
There's no way. No.
I'll just say it for you. Fuck no.
Hey,
look, we loved Ashley. We loved having her on the show. She's a great human being. We text quite often, but she's a different human being. Listen, I've talked to several folks out there, and we're all in agreement. It's like, no, we would never fucking go to jail voluntarily. I don't know who does that besides Ashley. It's wild. She's actually texting me right now. I'm not going to look at it. Right. I'll look at it after the show, but yeah, I wouldn't do the fucking 60 days in anyway. What about Sanders? Close us out today. We always, in Drinking Bros, we always do a Drinking Bro of the week. And if you could nominate somebody that's living, who would you nominate and why?
Oh no.
I know I put you on I've been on the spot all day.
Yeah. That's a tough. Well, I would say, this is an obscure one, but there's a company called Thrash and Raid.
Oh, dude, I just fucking bought a Thrash and Raid board.
Well,
no
then
shit.
You're a good human being.
No shit. I just bought a fucking deck.
Yeah.
I just bought a deck. I ordered it like 3 days ago. I was going to get one. I was going to get one from Donut Operator. And I was going to get one from Thrash and Raid. But Donut Operator was like a fucking 5 weeks. They're like 5 weeks sold out. So you can't even order for another 5 weeks. So I went and I just ended up getting two from Thrash and Raid.
Yeah, I would say binging those guys out at Thrash and Raid. Great shirts, just great designs, and trying to do a whole lot just positive work with people. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
good stuff, man. You follow stuff on Instagram and it's always positive, and he's got a really good story, and I would love to hear him on podcast and start telling a lot more.
Yeah, you know what? I'd love to hear a story. I've been following, man. I was following him
Yeah.
since he was like selling shit out of his garage.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he was like a Marine Corps Raider, or MARSOC of some sort. But I've just watched him grow and grow and grow, and I was finally like, you know what? Like, we need to get a couple of decks for my boys, and so we got one. I don't know how appropriate it is for a fucking 8-year-old, but
that's really good.
but we'll see. Yeah. Right.
See that?
I mean, were there ever any board brands out there that were like appropriate for kids? Probably not.
So like when I was a kid, Zorlak was the one that the really nice parents were like, you can't skate a Zorlak, right? Because you'd have to Google it, but Zorlak had
Zorlak. It sounds like a new COVID variant.
Yeah. So the artist was Pushead, Pushead, Pushead. So he did like a lot of the early Metallica shirts and stuff. His art was crazy, like goblins and skulls and stuff. But Powell Peralta was like the Tony Hawks and Steve Caballero and stuff. So it was all a little more like wholesome. But Zorlak like skull skates back in the day. Like those are the boards that nobody was supposed to skate. That were good kids, only the bad kids.
Yeah, it's kind of like the brand Lost in surfing, like LOST.
Right.
They were like the real fucking shitbags of surf culture back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Is like you had like Quicksilver. He was like, had Kelly Slater and Lisa Anderson, had some like really badass riders. And then you fucking had Lost, and it was like, dude, these guys were fucking insane.
Yeah.
They were pretty funny. But man, listen, I appreciate you coming on so last second, dude, and hanging out with us and telling us about gangs and gang culture and gang life. If you're still around, give us another thumbs up. Get on the YouTubes. Go and leave us a 5-star review. Mike will be back on Friday, I promise. And we've got a great show lined up for you guys. We got a great show lined up for you guys on Friday. He will be back, so just tune all in. Head to failuretostop.com. Get all your Christmas shopping needs. I think there's some stickers up there now, some coffee mugs out there. Ghostbed.com, failuretostop.com, and Policy Genius. Until next time, folks, guns up, fucking giddy up. Cheers.